Thank you for tuning in to the Island Treasures podcast. We value the insights shared by our guests and host, but it's important to note that their personal experiences are intended to inform and encourage, and not to replace professional, legal, or medical advice. With that, we are ready for today's exciting episode. Welcome to Island Treasures, a place for caregivers to hear encouragement from other caregivers, who by sharing their experiences offer helpful information and resources for your caregiving journey. I am your host and caregiver consultant, Alison Van Schie from beautiful Vancouver Island in British Columbia, Canada. And before we dive into today's episode, I want to let you know that Island Treasures is set up to receive fan mail. So you can text the podcast directly through the link at the bottom of the show notes. If you've ever doubted that you're a good caregiver, today's episode is just for you. My guest has been through the ups and downs of caregiving and is now a true caregiver warrior. When the opportunity to step in to care for her parents presented itself, she dove right in. And from that day forward, her life changed. She chose to embrace her journey, and daily she utilized her ultimate weapons of love and personal courage. She is all about empowering other caregivers to prepare them for their caregiving battles and to win those battles. Let's hear more about her journey, her strength, hope, and humor. Please join me now as I welcome Susanne White, the Caregiver Warrior. So today I have Susanne White with me, and I'm thrilled. So welcome, Susanne.
Thank you so much. It's so lovely to be here.
Well, it's lovely to have met you in person. Well, in person over Zoom. We worked together back in the days of the Self-Caregiving Strategies podcast because you were one of the sponsors of one of the episodes. So it was fun working with you then. And now I get to meet you and spend time with you.
Absolutely. That was a wonderful podcast. That was a great series.
It was fabulous series, and
well done.
Still being appreciated by many caregivers. And it's on a topic that's very dear to your heart: self-care for caregivers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The very difficult journey that we seem to all have as caregivers.
Looking after number one.
Prioritizing number one.
Yeah. So let's talk about what got you to be so wise as a caregiver warrior. Let's talk about your caregiving story.
I don't know. I think I became wise from my mistakes, probably. I don't think it was the journey itself. I think it was all the times they screwed it up that made me smarter. I don't know if it made me wise or not, but it made me smarter. So I took care of my parents. I had my mom who had dementia, and my dad who had manageable heart issues until they weren't manageable anymore. And the two of those little stinkers were hiding from us the fact that my mom, they worked really well together. You know, they had an amazing relationship. I didn't have a great one with my mom at the time, but they had a great relationship. He was a World War II hero, bombardier pilot. He was wounded, he had scars from his ankles to his butt. And she took care of him. She was, I look back now, I realize she was a caregiver warrior to a warrior. And they bonded over that. They bonded over people they loved, whatever. So they were really close. So they were sort of joined at the hip. So sure enough, they were hiding from us that she was starting to be in the early stages and that he was failing and getting really, really tired. And he we all used to go to Florida at my sister's for the holidays as my parents got older. And my dad collapsed on the plane and they had to take him off the plane in a wheelchair. It's not funny, but, because he was so burnt out and his heart, he was starting to affect everything. So, as the one in the family who shows up, my sister was wonderful and very supportive, but, I was close and I was the big sister. I said, "Hey, do you need help?" And my dad said, "Oh yeah, Soupy, you can help me, right?" "Oh yeah." So I said, "Okay." And there it was, that's the caregiver. Okay, I'm showing up. There it is.
And you'd never been a caregiver before?
No, not to this extent. No. I think caregivers are born caregivers. I think we're hardwired. Those of us who are caregivers, I think we're born that way. So I was very codependent and took care of people all my life, but I was a people pleaser. But Not to this extent, not where it was such a huge shift in my life and my world and their world.
But he didn't skip a beat in saying yes, he wanted help, which is really, really good.
He was the best. I had direct opposites. I had my mom, who I didn't get along with at all. I mean, we fought from the minute I could speak up for myself. We were at each other's throats and trying to get the last word, and I jokingly say that I thought it was because we were so different. But it was because of my mom. I'm exactly like my mom,
Yep, yep. I would have predicted that just the way you're
so
describing it.
so I get that now, and I also get how wonderful and amazing she was. And through this journey, I healed. So it was amazing. But she was not having it. She was like, she's like 5 foot tall, Irish Catholic, just he took care of everything. She ruled the roost, and he was really laid back, and everything was okay. Whatever you say, Claire, whatever you say, And he was just the polar opposite. He was just, and I guess that's why he survived what he went through in his life, because he was just easy breezy, and that the glass was always half full, and it helped me so much because he was so appreciative, and told me, I still have a memory of a hug he gave me once, you were so special. I mean, I can tear up thinking about it. But so he was great. Now, I'm not saying that there weren't issues there too, because when the child becomes the parent and the parent becomes the child, that's very big. And nobody kind of warns you about that. So anyway, I jumped in with both feet.
Yeah. So were you there when he got off the plane? Were you with him in flight?
No. And because that was pre us knowing. They were still working together to hide it.
Oh.
So they flew down, and I was scheduled. They flew down to Florida to my sister's, a couple of days before me. I was still working full time. I was working full time the whole time, and then my sister went to meet the plane, or to get them, and it was an issue, Yeah.
Wow.
He was exhausted. He had walking pneumonia, and his heart issues had gotten much worse. He passed out 4 or 5 weeks earlier and didn't tell us.
Oh, yeah. The signs were there, but nobody was seeing them because they were
we
hiding
weren't
them.
seeing them, because I didn't go down as often as I did. I was on the phone a lot because my mom and I were, we weren't happy to be around each other too much. Oh, I wasn't, happy to be around her. So, and I mean, they really had their act together. But when he got sick, and then he wasn't, and he was sleeping so much, we could kind of see that she was sort of repeating herself, and I could see he was burnout. I mean, he looked horrible. So yeah, he said yes right away. So I was like, okay, okay. And then I said I was going to do it by myself because I could handle this. I was going to do it perfectly, and I was going to do it right away. I was going to fix everything. Right. Yeah.
You had unachievable goals, but well done. You did have goals.
Yes, that's a very positive way. I had goals that were heading me right towards disaster.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot. And 6 to 8 months later, because I was working full time and then commuting and staying with them, and then in the beginning, it just all hit me, caregiver burnout. So I had to make some adjustments, and it's that journey that I went through of making the adjustments and figuring out what was going to help me take care of me, because they weren't going to change. I mean, they were going to change, but not in that was personality wise, or my mom was never going to change, so I had to.
Yeah, and they weren't going to change health-wise for the better, unfortunately.
No. And I think, and it's great that you said that up front here, because I think that's, it's this whole thing about we're going to fix it. That third thing for me, that I was going to fix it right away. And it's not about fixing anybody. It's about walking them home, and being supportive about, but this whole thing, my whole life, I tried to fix everything.
Walking them home.
Walking them home. That's
that.
it. I won't take credit for that. That's a Buddhist. Yeah, we're just walking each other home.
Wow. Ooh,
yeah.
That's a good
I
one.
know, me
Thank
too,
you.
right?
Yeah.
Me too. But that's true.
Oh.
I believe that. I mean, I believe that with my soul. So it's hard to remember that a lot of time. But, I mean, that's really what it's about. And we're blessed if we have somebody walking with us, and we're blessed if we can walk with somebody home. It's an honor.
Well, he trusted you implicitly.
He did, and that's very interesting that you're saying that, because I don't think there was a question ever in his mind, because I'm a type A personality. And very independent and very capable of, I question myself a lot, but I mean, I appear to be really capable. And part of that was because my mom was so hard on me, I didn't want her criticism. So I tried to be as perfect as possible. So I think he could see that I was capable. But interestingly enough, he said to me during that journey, he said, he said, gee, Soupy, I really see how you tick now.
Oh,
Yeah. And I said, what do you mean, Dad? He said, oh, I see how you operate. He said, you're something. And he said, I like it.
ooh.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
got a lot of accolades from your dad by the
I
sounds of
did.
it.
I
Yeah.
did. I did. And I got them from my mom at the end too.
Oh.
I got, it was an amazing, and people ask me, oh, should I do this? I don't get along with my, and I hear that a lot. And I empathize with people who have been either abused or traumatized in their childhood, that it's just not possible. I completely empathize and understand. I get that. But I think there are times when people say to me, I can't do this. I don't get along with them, where I just have to try and say, if you can do it and you can bite the bullet, there's a gift. There's a pot at the end of the rainbow. I mean, there is a gift. I mean, I never thought I would heal my relationship with my mom or be able to be a better me. So she could, sort of have some space. Do you know what I mean? I never thought that was going to happen. And it did.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Like what a gift. Before she passed away, you
Yeah.
had healed your relationship with her.
Yeah. Yeah. I stood at her grave.
Oh,
Yeah. That was something that I was sort of, you have pre-grief, right? So you worry about losing them. That can be a very silent killer, the pre-grief. And I said, I want to be able to, put her at rest and be at rest and be at peace, So to keep, and it happened. I mean, I can see myself right now standing there, and it was.
but it is okay when caregivers cannot.
Absolutely. That's what, yes, absolutely. And as I said, I empathize on that,
Yeah.
and I mean, and here's the thing about that. May I speak to that for a moment?
Please do.
It's absolutely okay. In other words, it's all okay. I think, I had someone say to me, I was giving a speech and I had someone say to me who felt really bad about taking a couple months, like after she put her husband in a assisted living, because that had to happen. She could no longer care for him by herself. She said, I just disappeared for, a couple months and I didn't talk to anybody. I isolated. And I said, because you were supposed to. Like, she said, what do you mean? I said, obviously you needed to do that and you were allowed. Like, that's what you needed to do then. She goes, oh. And I think those of us who struggle with our relationships, just in general, that's okay. It's all okay. There's no rule book. I wish for everybody to have peace, but I think, you have to have grace with the fact that you might not have peace. Maybe that's what's meant to be.
And grace towards yourself.
And grace towards you, that it's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I hear that a lot too. Like, I don't want to do this. And it's eating away at them. But there are other options. So let's explore those other options.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah. And again, it's the shame and the guilt around all of this. We're all different. I think we're all on the same journey, but I always say we have different paths. Like, we're all different. And I think we all have different skills. And, like, some of us can delegate really well, as opposed to doing it ourselves. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I mean, I have a really hard time delegating. And when I do, like, I micromanage, like, and for some reason, there's this guilt and shame that that's not as good as somebody else's way of caregiving.
And that's unfortunate because you yourself might feel better about the situation and your care recipient might feel better about the situation if you're not the one that's hands-on caregiving for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
They might appreciate that other person that you're delegating.
Absolutely. Nobody wants a snarky caregiver. And I mean, they know no matter what it is, even my mom, even whatever stage she went into, and when she was slipping away from me, like, they know how we feel. Like,
Yeah.
it's an energy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
You
So I
cannot
mean,
hide that from them.
No. And they feel guilty that I mean, my mom's biggest challenges was that she had to depend on somebody
Oh,
and ask for help from somebody, especially me, She hated it. So had I not like, anyway, I just think we all do what we can do, and it's fine. There's no judge or jury on this.
yeah.
We all show up in different ways, and it may be to delegate to someone else.
Yeah.
And have the courage to do that. That's courageous. I
I
always say
think
my
so.
sister still feels guilty about
Oh.
that she wasn't like hands-on, right?
Yeah.
To this day. And I always say to her, look, I told you when it was happening that I had it, which I did pretty much, support me, which she really did.
Mm.
And there will be a day when I call you up and say, get your butt on a plane right now. I need you. And sure enough, that happened. She did it. She got her butt on a plane. She was there in 3 hours.
Yeah. She did what you needed. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that she's braver than I am because she let me do it.
Mm.
Like, I felt better because I'm such a control freak. She let go, right? So how brave was she that she let go of the control?
Yeah.
Like she was a better caregiver than I was, I think.
Aw. Have you told her that?
Yes, but it's not
Aw.
enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? She's still, I tell her all the time, no, no, I didn't show up. I didn't, you took care of everything.
Isn't that funny? That's perspective. That's
Yeah,
different perspectives.
it's all perspective.
So you're talking about courage,
Yes.
and you call yourself the Caregiver Warrior.
Yes.
So let's talk about how you came to that name for yourself and all that's involved with what you do now.
Well,
This is going to be a 3-hour podcast, by the way.
Yeah, and I will talk forever with you because it's so easy breezy and it's so much fun and so interesting. So just shut me up whenever you want to. I wanted to, get a name for the website and the initiative and whatever. And to me, caregivers are warriors. My dad was a World War II vet. I have a lot of people around me who were warriors, and warriors go into battle every day to protect those and the freedoms and the safety of their loved ones, right? I mean, they give of themselves every day to the point of death, really. I mean, they do everything they can to protect those they love. And I thought, that's what caregivers do. And they will not be broken, and they will not lay down, and they will crawl. I see myself, we've all done it. We'll crawl. You never see a white flag with a caregiver. Like,
oh, you have such amazing quotes. Like you just come up with amazing pictures, word pictures.
But it's true. You don't see a caregiver, oh, well, 6 months, I'm out of here. No, do you know what I mean? So, I mean, they give their lives up just like our warriors or our military warriors do, really. So I thought that's apropos. And I had a dear friend of mine say to me, oh, I don't kind of like that. It's kind of tough for the caregiver. And I said, yeah, it is because caregiving isn't unicorns and roses. I mean,
caregivers are tough.
They're tough, and it's a battle, and it's a war. We're fighting this war every day in multiple battles on multiple fronts, to make sure they're safe and sound.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see that battle get won. The warrior wins.
Yes, and I think it happens all the time. I think there's wins and victories every day. And the first one being that we showed up and we got through the day. Do you know what I mean? I think there's numerous victories, silent victories. And I think hopefully our work will remind caregivers of that, not that one thing that happened, that one mistake that happened that day. How about the 14 other things you did for them? The dressing the wound, the doing the pills, calling the doctor, going to emergency room, changing the urine bag with a smile and, and a joke. Do you know what I mean? There's amazing victories there. We don't celebrate them.
Well, and I'm seeing, like at the end of a battle, there is a huge celebration. And I'm just thinking that the caregivers need to have that celebration. Maybe at the end of each day, they make it through.
I agree.
A parade, something magnificent.
That's so funny because in my book, I literally have because it's 140 self-care tips. and I believe it's have a parade.
Oh, cool.
That's perfect, right?
Yeah.
Like at the end of every day, have a parade.
Hmm.
You
That's
made it
funny.
through, you know?
So your book, and
Yes.
is your book out now?
Yes.
So let's talk about that. And it's
Yes.
called,
It is called Self-Care for Caregivers. And it is actually on Amazon. And it's been out a little bit now. I lost a little bit of track on it because I had an operation. So anyway, it came out almost a year ago.
oh, okay.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So it's self-care for caregivers, and it's 140 self-care tips. And what's lovely about it, and of course, as I was writing it, of course, it made sense, but that there's one tip on a page. So in other words, of course, when I was writing it, that's what I did. But they did a beautiful job. It's a hardcover book. They did a beautiful job, and they put like one tip on a page. So it's great for caregivers, even by like to put it like by the bed, and they can just scroll. My goal is that to scroll through and they can find something like anything they need. That's just a quick sort of like, "Hi, are you okay? Here, try this." And 140 of those.
And you were asked to write this book, were you not?
I was.
That's got to feel good.
It was amazing. It was tough only because because it was Simon and Schuster. It was Adams Media, which is Simon and Schuster. They came to me.
Drop a name.
I know. They found me through Instagram. The glory of social media, because they liked my short form writing, which is kind of good for me because it's not a tweet, but it's not a blog. And so they asked me to do it, but I had to do it in 90 days.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. So I'll probably never do that again, but it was a great exercise. And I literally was writing it when I was working in New York on the subway in the morning. I would do like 1,000 words a day.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah.
And what if you didn't get the 1,000 before your stop?
I would finish it at home or in work. I was great like halfway through, and anyone who's written a book, as you know, it's something. So, but my friend said, "Well, you're just in the messy middle. Just do it one sentence at a time." And I'm okay.
Yeah, that's wise too. The messy middle.
The messy middle.
Isn't that life? There's a beginning
Yes.
and an end and a messy
The
middle.
messy middle. Most of my life is in the messy middle. It's
I'm
not
writing,
pretty.
I'm writing too many things down here. This is great.
Oh, thank you.
Like we're not even at the messy middle yet.
Yeah, we're not even at the messy middle yet.
Yeah, no, that's fabulous. So
Yeah, and
oh, no, go ahead.
no, I was just saying that I think so much of my life in general is a messy middle, and then I think caregiving, I was constantly in the messy middle. It's just such an extraordinary experience. I mean, I would just go in the bathroom and just wrap a towel around my head and just weep.
No. Oh,
So they couldn't hear me,
yeah.
and then wipe my face off and go back out.
Oh,
But, I learned to let myself do that without
yeah.
feeling guilty about it. Or I think that's my big, 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 big message is just this shame thing that we can get ourselves into is just the devil. I mean, it's just, we have to really be careful that the shame monster doesn't even enter our household, and it's really hard because, no matter how long I do this, no matter what the age of the caregiver, how many caregivers, no matter who they are, every single one of them doubts that they're a good caregiver at some point, or they feel that something they did that they're a bad caregiver.
Well, nobody's trained on how to do it. And most people learn as they go along. And then they become caregiver consultants or caregiver advocates afterwards because they want to help people so that they don't have to go through what they went through. So, yeah, messy middles of caregiving.
Yeah.
And it's because your world's turned upside down when you're caregiving.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I think the more, which is why I think the work that we do is really great, because I think we really need to get the word out that it's normal. We need to normalize the caregiving journey, the intensity and the insanity of it, the craziness, the chaos. But my concern really is that, we compound our emotions. So like, we're angry at ourselves that we're angry, or we get anxious that we're anxious, or we're resentful that we're resentful. I mean, it's the shame that's involved in all of that. It's the pressure we put on ourselves to be perfect
Yeah, I was going
And
to
not,
say it's that perfectionism
oh, it's the perfectionism and the expectations that we have. I wrote a
on
blog once.
yourself.
Yeah, on ourselves. I wrote a blog once that said, lower your expectations.
Yeah. I'd read that blog again.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I mean, it's just a shame because, making a mistake or feeling guilty is like, guilt is about something we did or we didn't do. Shame is, like when we make a mistake, we think we are the mistake,
Oh,
right? Or that if something bad happens, we are bad. So shame is about thinking that there's something wrong with us. And there's nothing wrong with us. The shame has no place in a caregiver's world because we're showing up. And like I said, I believe, they're miracle workers walking on earth. I think they're angels walking on earth, caregivers.
yeah.
And if you show up and you do the best you can with all your heart and soul,
Yeah.
no shame, babe.
No shame. No, you showed up.
But we're geared to it,
Yeah.
a judge and
High
jury.
expectations. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's our takeaway today. No shame.
No
No shame
shame.
allowed. And I'm envisioning the big X across the road sign. No shame allowed here. Yeah. So, Susanne, let's talk about your weapon of the day, which I think is a brilliant idea. And that's what I first was introduced to before I even met you, was your weapon of the day for
Awesome.
caregivers. And you release them every day.
I do. I do from Monday through Friday. I do a weapon of the day every morning.
Yeah. So what was today's?
What was today's? I have to actually think about that. People say to me, how do you get whatever mood I'm in the morning and whatever I'm going through in the morning, that's what I post. It helps me to kind of, yes, the weapon of the day is when we care for others, we might get lost in the storm for a while. There's no shame in being lost. The storm will pass and we will find ourselves again.
Brilliant. Look at that. The word shame went into today's weapon of the day.
See?
Yeah. I love that
Woo!
because it's a way of venting as well. It's a very productive way of venting. Like you say, it's how you feel that day
Mhm.
to help others.
And to help myself. That's why I always say to somebody say to me, oh, I loved your weapon of the day. And I said, yeah, well, hopefully I listened to it because I wrote it because I needed to hear it. Like it's what I need to hear in the morning, guys.
So would you consider yourself actively caregiving now?
I am. I have a family member that has bronchiectasis. And I'm sort of helping out with that, which is a chronic lung disease.
Mhm.
So, she's very self-sufficient and working through it and whatever, but I'm definitely learning about it and I'm a good backup if need be.
Oh, you're probably a really good resource right there.
Well, support, I think, is just about because it's a chronic disease. So, um, there's the boat kind of my vision is the boat going up and down in the water. There's waves on that. And I think that and I've also cared for another family member who had cirrhosis of the liver. So, so these chronic diseases are overwhelming, and bronchiectasis is not necessarily fatal in any way, shape, or form. You can live with it, but it's something you have to live with, and it's pretty intense.
I had
So,
not heard of it.
yeah, it's the airwaves are, and this is my take on this. This is my opinion about this. I have to do a disclaimer, but your airway passages are larger than normal. So bacteria that you normally flush through your system, that you and I flush through our system, and very normal things like water and dirt, get stuck in there. So then they fester. So you got to sometimes go on like major doses of antibiotics for like 18 months at a time. Yeah, and you have to do airway clearance twice a day. It's definitely a challenge.
Mm. Well,
So
I'm glad they
support,
have you. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. And yeah, and then I have other friends that are going, that are going through things. So I try my best to be supportive, in any way, shape I can be. And that's sometimes all it needs is like, hey, like I'm listening.
Yeah. Let them know they're not alone. So what do you need right now?
In
You,
general?
yeah, not as a job or anything, but you've given so much to others.
Oh, thank you.
And what do you feel you still need?
I think there will probably be some kind of content from me about having brain surgery.
Okay, let's talk about the brain surgery.
Yeah,
That was the operation you were mentioning earlier.
yeah. Yeah, MRI on Saturday and a phone call from a surgeon on Monday. It was like completely, my balance was off and had been for some time, and they were so, vertigo and this, that, the other thing. And I was moving from New York to Florida, and finally I just said, because I was a caregiver advocate, because I was caregiver taking care of people, I said, I want an MRI. So whatever we need to do, write me a prescription for an MRI. And I almost didn't go. I mean, it was always like, oh, I don't have to go. And then, I got to go. So yeah. So it turns out I had a brain tumor that I'd had for probably 30 years. That was benign, thank God,
Hmm.
back here. And they were thinking at the time, because anyway, it was pushing my spinal cord to the side. Yeah. So 9 hours on the table, and they got 94% of it. Um, but the content would sort of be around the fact that there's not a lot of information about the healing process, which I think that I mean, it's my brain surgery is teaching me a lot.
Hmm.
And it taught me a lot about healing, because of course I want to heal right away. And you can be, and I was up and running 6 to 8 weeks afterwards. I mean, I was walking around, I was out of the hospital in like 2 days.
Hmm.
And walking around. I had to be careful and everything, but I couldn't walk a dog and stuff like that. But yeah, you're up and running, but you're not. And I had a friend who also had brain tumor removed who said, well, they fixed me, but I'm not the same.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that's really sort of what it's like. There's a new normal, sort of. And there's phases to it. And sadly, I think what a lot of us go through is this frustration and fear that we're not healing right, or we didn't heal right, or because it just takes a really long time. I mean, my spinal cord was like completely sideways. And now, so I had a doctor tell me recently that you're recalibrating.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, you had it for 30 years and it was growing, like there's a lot of, so um that's a gift of many gifts of it, is that I'm learning about healing. There's just healing doesn't have a time limit on it.
And it doesn't have a playbook.
Doesn't have a playbook.
But
And
what a great visual with the recalibration, like that your body is recalibrating, your brain is recalibrating, you're recalibrating.
my soul is recalibrating. I mean, it was, I mean, you tend to, I heard a friend of mine sent me an amazing podcast on Irish radio, about actually a woman who was a singer and her neurosurgeon. And they did like a, 15, 20-minute interview, and 2 years. She's not doing a new album, whatever. But I mean, and he said a very interesting thing. He said that, we all have a sense of immortality. That's what keeps us in survival mode. We're not going to die ever, And when you have the shock of a big operation or a big shock to your system, that goes away, because it's like, oh my God, you know what I mean? And you have to rebuild that. So sadly, everything, a hangnail becomes like, oh my God, is it? So it's really interesting to watch myself.
No,
Um,
you're able to
and
take a step back and observe yourself objectively.
I have to. There are times
Good.
when I have to, or I'm going to drive myself crazy with, you worry. So I was always good at trying to, I've always been on like self-searching. That's the kind of person I was. I was always looking into philosophy and things like that. And I have a degree in psychology, but I mean, I always tried to do that, to be mindfulness, and to step back. And I knew that I could be a guinea pig, not only with that, but because I had caregivers, I had people taking care of me. So I was like, oh, well, I'm going to see how good I'm, sort of patient I am. But yeah, I try to do that because the healing process is not real comfortable for me, because I want everything to be perfect. I want to be perfect. I want to control everything. I want to feel great. I don't, oh, what's this, and there's like little side things that happen. So it's been a fascinating journey.
You did say you're out of control. You are not in
Yes.
control.
Yeah, no, you're not in control. Oh, I got that message loud and clear.
But
So
that's
in a
with
way,
caregiving, you're not in control either.
right. Yeah, right. But I think the degree to, because I never had anything wrong with me really,
Oh.
prior to this. And I think that this really taught me even a greater lesson about control,
Hmm.
that we don't, we control very little.
Yeah.
You know, my survival as a person depended on me having control. I mean, that's how I function. That's how I go through life. Like if I can control everything perfectly, then I'm going to be okay. And to a certain extent, that was a house of cards that held up for me for decades. And I think caregiving, knocked kind of the top cards off,
Mm.
and then I think having brain surgery, sort of like the whole house fell down. And it was like, what's left? Like I really can't control this. How do I function? And just the learning to be vulnerable and day at a time.
But you still are holding the deck of cards.
They'll probably bury me with the deck of cards. I buried my dad with his Phillies hat because we were from
Aw.
down there, and my mom's sunglasses. She always had these sunglasses on. So yeah. So they'll put a deck of cards in when they cremate me. They'll put a couple decks of cards in
Huh?
me.
Yeah. Oh, where do you want to go from here? I mean, in the podcast, where do you want to go from here?
Well, I just love our conversation about, the mental health of caregivers and how we just beat ourselves up, the judge and jury and the no shame. And I mean, that's what this is all about. I mean, it is, trying to be perfect, trying to keep control when we really don't have any, asking for help. I mean, I have such a hard time, to this day. And I wrote a weapon of the day recently that said, caregivers get so much fulfillment no matter what the situation is. I believe that we get such a fulfillment out of helping somebody, right? I mean, so we know that good feeling, right? To help somebody. So why would we not give that to somebody else? But
Yep.
yet it's like, why do we have such a hard time asking for help? It's crazy.
But it
It's
is most of us.
most of us, so that's the other thing is, and me too. I mean, I had a pivotal moment where I woke up at my parents' apartment like at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, a Sunday morning, just in a complete panic attack. I mean, I was physically and emotionally just shaken. Like I was shaking physically. I was just, it was like total doom and gloom. I was going to die. They were going to die. It was just awful. And thank God something inside of me made me reach for the phone, and I called a fellow caregiver who completely talked me down off the ledge, really helped me, really listen and whatever, and but I was in such a state that I didn't even think twice about, like, that's how desperate I was, I had to ask for help. That's how bad it was. So you can imagine how bad it was. And I hung the phone up and I thought, I don't feel shame around that. Like she didn't make me feel ashamed, right? So, and actually I feel really good. I feel really heard and I'm not alone. And I thought, well, ooh, and the sky didn't fall on me, and I thought, oh, well, okay, I guess maybe this asking for help. So that kind of sent me on a journey
Huh?
to start sort of asking for help in like little tiny ways. Like,
Yep.
I didn't do it really well for quite a while, but like little bit by little bit by little bit. And by the time my parents passed, I had a team.
Mm.
They were taking them to doctors' appointments. I had friends of my mom and dad's who were nurses. They were administering. I mean, it was just, for some reason, I couldn't be, for some reason, we had, I guess my dad had some kind of spell or some kind of emergency. I don't know, something happened and they sent a nurse. I guess maybe after his open heart surgery, he had open heart surgery at 87 to take care of my mom. Like he wanted, I know, it was crazy and did great for like 2 more years. But for some reason they sent visiting nurses or whatever. And she called me because they have to call me because for some reason I couldn't be there. And I could tell she was hot. I could tell the nurse was high, whether she was drunk or whatever. And she was screwing up my dad's pills and calling the doctor. And so I, thank God, I had asked for help. And their next door neighbor, who they were really good friends with, was a nurse, like a retired nurse, but a nurse. So I called her and said, please get over there and throw that lady out of the house because my dad's too nice to do, So boom. I mean, stuff like that.
How fortunate that you recognized that when you were speaking on the phone with her and had the nurse next door to send over there.
Well, that's that's where the
You
miracle.
could have killed your dad.
Oh, of course, of course, of course, of course.
I hope there was a follow-up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't talk about this often, but I'm clean and sober 38 years. So I understand that can be a hard journey. So I wanted to be as empathetic as possible. However, it was dangerous.
Yeah, very dangerous.
And hopefully that was a bottom and people got help, But yeah, that was, and I mean, it was just, top of my head exploded that day.
I bet. Well, you say that we all have skills, we all have abilities. You have a history that helped you know exactly what you were listening to on the phone.
Yeah.
Perhaps not everybody would have known.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Like slurred speech and,
Yeah. Yeah. And just yeah. And that's why I always say, expect the miracles because they happen. I mean, it's just, things line up in miraculous ways. I mean, I don't, there are times where my back was against the wall and things would just happen or fall into place or somebody would call me or whatever. I mean, just made me really believe in something, in a higher power or whatever you want to believe in.
I believe that too.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think caregivers are blessed.
They're empowered.
They are empowered.
Yes. And if they can seek supports through what we can offer.
Yes.
That really helps empower them. But
yeah.
I believe
there's nothing like another caregiver.
Yeah. Oh, I say the best resource for caregivers is another caregiver.
Yeah. 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 I mean, look, I had therapists. I belonged to a caregiver group. I connected with other caregivers. I would talk to people and I would, I mean, I'm a schmoozer anyway. I'm a big talker, but I would talk to people in the grocery line.
Yes.
Right?
Because you could.
Because I could. And 8 times out of 10, there was, I'm taking care of my mom. Like, I'm taking care of my brother. Or, and it would be just that 5 minute of, oh my God, you believe what they did today? I mean, like, boom, instant relatable stuff.
Yeah,
and it
they
really
get it.
They
get it.
They get it. But nobody laughs harder than 2 caregivers together. Right?
It's a vent.
Oh my God. Oh, and to vent. Oh yeah. And cry. I mean,
Yeah.
But I mean, I've gotten like milk through my nose laughing with,
Not appreciating that visual.
I'm sorry. But you know how when kids and they,
yes, I totally know. I got the visual.
But I mean, I've gotten laughing so hard with caregivers, like about, well, your mom. Well, my mom, oh my God,
At my support group, the only rule we have, well, other than to be confidential, anything said there stays there, but to have fun.
That's great. Because it's very hard to keep your humor sometimes, but boy, does it work.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the bridges for me and my mom. There were 2 bridges for me and my mom. There were a lot of bridges for me and my mom, but one of them was our sense of humor. And as you can tell, I have kind of a goofy sense of humor. And my dad is and they got along because their sense of humor was we sort of all have the same sense of humor in my family. And all my life, I tried to get my mom to laugh out loud. Like she had a really great laugh. I see that now, and I have a picture of me actually doing something and she's laughing out loud. And it's just one of the most precious pictures to me. So it helped me because if I could loosen up and stay in touch with my sense of humor and sort of like nudge her, she would get laughing. Like she would like, don't get old. There's no future in it. I mean, that's one of her famous lines, so I mean, oh my God, so that was a bridge. And then the other bridge was sort of, we had been so abrasive with each other for so long. So now I would walk into it that way. Like I would walk in the door that way.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they say if it's hysterical, if you're hysterical, it's historical. So I would just bring that. And I realized that if I would soften that, you know, especially as she got worse with her dementia, the softer I got, the softer she got.
Yeah.
Because she just had a lot of anxiety. That was her whole thing. She was very anxious, I think, probably undiagnosed. So there were the two bridges right there that I learned to work quite a lot.
That's that knowledge, that's that awareness, knowing. And back to the humor, if you don't mind.
No.
It's usually the silliest thing
Oh, oh
that
my God.
sparks the humor.
Oh yeah.
Silliest things.
Yes. You know, and I would go on YouTube. I mean, Sophie rolls down a hill.
Who's
Sophie, go into YouTube. I mean,
oh,
and this is my sense of humor. I'm
okay.
sorry. It's a really old video, but Sophie rolls down a hill. It's yeah. And
Guess what? I'm
if
gonna
you
check
love
that out.
dogs and you want to laugh, Sophie rolls down a hill. But I mean, there's stuff like, I mean, there's cat videos there, you know, I mean, there's and now on Instagram and you know, and animals, like animals doing people things, I find really funny. I don't know why. If you dress up a parrot, you got me. So yeah, and my animals, all the animals that I've ever had a sense of humor.
Aw. Yeah.
All my animals are goofy. And as a matter of fact, I have a rescue from Puerto Rico, and he was on the streets for 2 years and probably in a hurricane and whatever. And he's very standoffish. He's not affectionate at all. He's the best dog in the universe. But I had a hard time because I was like, no snuggle buggles, come on, and I got to him through his sense of humor.
Oh.
Like I could tease him, like, and that was the bridge, and he's funny. He's a
What's his
funny guy.
name? What did you call him?
Frederico from Puerto Rico. Freddie to his family and friends.
Oh. Freddie,
You
once
know,
you started to laugh with him.
yes.
Yeah.
And to tease, like let him tease me and tease him a little bit. And he's got a sense of humor.
Mhm.
So I think it's sort of a universal kind of thing of joy and just not being so serious. I can get so serious about everything, you
Well, and
know.
I think that's tied in with perfectionism, like we've said before. I think it's tied in.
Yeah, I agree.
So we need to let loose and yeah,
And I'm the poster child for perfectionism. So that's why you're saying it so much,
maybe.
because it's a big theme in my life. I'm very aware of it and I still struggle with it.
But that humor thing, I'm getting sore cheek muscles from
Good,
laughing with you. Like they are
good.
really.
And
This
it's
is
joy. It's great.
it,
And here's two things. See, you're bringing a lot of things out of me. Two things would happen to me that I learned during the period. One was if I thought something was really funny, if I think things are funny in general, but if you really get me to the point where I can't breathe, milk that, like milk it. Like I would because we stop ourselves kind of, like because you're laughing so loud or what are people going to think? Or like my sister and I, like when we get together and we find something really, I mean, people have gotten mad at us, especially in theaters and stuff, you know what I mean? Because we are sliding down like in our seats because we can't stop ourselves. Don't stop it. Just like let it go. And the other thing is if you're weeping,
yep.
if you're crying and you just let it rip,
Yep. Yeah.
and
Don't
that was,
stifle the tears. Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
sob. I think you should laugh and weep like until your body just can't do it anymore.
Yeah. It's
You know?
cathartic. Both
Oh,
are cathartic. But I
yeah.
think you nailed it too. You said like we're worried about what other people think.
Yeah.
However, there's been the giggles come in funerals too. And
Oh,
yeah.
oh my God. Oh my God. And in, I'm Catholic, so in church. Didn't I see something on, TikTok or Instagram or whatever? Because I'm on all those, I have to be on all those platforms. Whereas, something about you want to have a friend that gets you in trouble in church. Like you need that person in your life that makes you uncontrollably in trouble, laughing at something,
Letting it all out.
letting
Yeah.
it all out, and just the joy of life. I mean, I just think that's absolute joy, and we have a big thing about laughter here in the country right now, and I just how could you think that laughing and feeling joy is a bad thing?
And it's freeing.
Oh my God.
And it's unifying.
And it's unifying. And you don't take yourself, you're not taking yourself so seriously. Like you're not so important. I think sometimes we think we're so important and we have to be so,
Image.
it's all about image. It's all
Yeah.
about people pleasing and what people think. And
However, my understanding of warriors is that they have to stifle or withhold their laughter. So we're going
well,
to have to soften that image a little bit.
yeah, we'll have to soften that. But I do believe that if you're a true warrior, you laugh like a warrior.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a true warrior, you're going to have a downtime that you deserve, right? To both
True.
cry and to laugh.
True.
Because warriors aren't like perfect beings. They're, they suffer, they bleed, they make mistakes, they stumble, because they're in the dark a lot, but they still keep going to battle.
And they laugh,
Hopefully,
but not
when
while they're standing up for inspection.
oh,
Wow, you're giving us so much today, Susanne. This is
oh,
amazing. So we've talked about your book. We've talked
yes,
about your weapons of the day, which I
yes,
love. We've talked
thank you.
about your caregiving story. We've talked about your brain tumor and how you're recovering and you're recalibrating at this point. You've given us many quotes, which I love, and I'm going to enjoy going back and pulling them out of this recording. And so, how can folks reach you on social media?
Thank you for asking. The best place is through my website, because there's my email's on there, and I get all them myself. And DM me. You can DM me and Instagram. All of my social media is at Caregiver Warrior, except for X. I have to call it X now, which is Caregive Warrior. But everything else is at Caregiver Warrior, TikTok and Instagram and Susanne White and LinkedIn. Trying to think of what else. I
YouTube.
think
Are you on YouTube?
I'm not yet. I mean, yes, I am, but there's not a lot there yet. And
Hmm.
I think that that's got to change because I want to get better at that. Because I'm really expanding on my speaking career now too. So it's like important for people to be able to see me.
Yeah. Yeah. And is there a tidbit, a fun tidbit about you that you'd be willing to share with the listeners today?
Fun tidbit. I used to be a singer-songwriter.
Oh, okay. That's not just going to stop there. That's going to expand a little bit. Please tell me more.
Well, one of the things that my mom did for me, which is interesting to talk about now, but she really supported my creative side. So everything else in my life, she was really hard on me. But boy, did she give me support and freedom with my creative side. So when I was a little girl, she said, "Do you want to take ballet?" And I said, "No, I want to play guitar like Elvis Presley." So she got me an electric guitar. So
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
I know it's amazing. And I always say that I never it's not necessarily good content all the time, but I never have a blank page in front of me. And I believe it's because she supported me. She came to every so the years went by and I did singing, songwriting, sang my way through college, came to New York. She was at every gig I would let her come to, like sit in the front row. So that was a great gift.
And that does not parallel with what you're saying about your relationship with her.
No, and sadly, although before she passed, we had a conversation because she said, are you singing? You're still singing, right? And I said, "Oh, mommy, well, not that much." "Well, you have to do that." Okay. So I always knew, I didn't really understand it until the healing happened, where I was able to look back. I didn't understand a lot of things about her. And I have grief about that. I have grief that I lost years,
Mm.
because I only had her for those last 5 years. So it's in retrospect that I can look back and say, wow, and work I've done with myself, we're in therapy and whatever, where I say, wow, the reason I am never lost for content or my expression, I never have writer's block in any way, shape, or form is my mom. because it was just like, oh, that's what she just completely supported me, and made me feel like I could do anything when it came to that.
Oh, wonderful. That is a huge
And
gift.
as a woman too, I was a record producer in the days when there were no women, and I never thought I couldn't do anything because I was a girl, and that was my mom.
Wow. And I still think that of you. There's nothing you can't do. And that is why you are the Caregiver Warrior.
No, thank you.
Yeah. You're delightful.
Oh, well, thank you so much. So are you. This is, we could do this all day.
I said we could. 3 hours. Might need a bathroom break every now and then, but no, this has been fabulous.
Great.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add?
I think if we save one caregiver at a time, I think, it's really important because I call caregiving the silent epidemic because, caregivers are silent. And I think the work that you do and the things that I try to do, I think we really, really want to save people from hurting themselves the way I might have hurt myself, by being hard on myself. And I think it's really important. And I think it makes a big difference. So for that, I thank you.
And I say you're more than welcome. And I agree. The one caregiver, let's save one caregiver. It's the starfish on the beach story. And I just wrote a blog about that. We're helping the one. And I always say, if this helps one person, and I hope it helps a lot more than one person, but that one person who's needing help right now, I hope it helps.
Me too.
So thank you so much, Susanne, for being the Caregiver Warrior and for being such a delightful guest on the Island Treasures podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is an absolute joy.
For me too. Thanks. Have you ever tried to keep control when you didn't have any control? Perhaps like Susanne, you jumped into caregiving with both feet, wanting to fix everything, before quickly learning that that wasn't possible. Susanne learned from her caregiving experience and from her brain surgery that there are times when she had to ask for help. Asking for help isn't comfortable for most of us, so Susanne suggests we start small. She also reminded us that shame has no place in a caregiver's world, so when we doubt ourselves and don't measure up to our own expectations, she suggests we focus on all the things we did right throughout the day, not the one thing we didn't do well, in our own opinion. And she reminds us to laugh, and laugh hard. And conversely, if we need to cry, let the tears flow. For more self-care tips, be sure to check out Susanne's book, Self-Care for Caregivers, and of course her weapon of the day to empower us daily. After all, caregiving isn't all unicorns and roses. If you feel like you're in the messy middle of caregiving and need some supports, I invite you to tap into AlongsideCaregiverConsulting.ca or Alongside Caregiver Consulting's Facebook page or Instagram account, or caregiverwarrior.com. Thank you for tuning in today, and to Susanne White, thank you for sharing your insights and tips, along with your journey and supports as the Caregiver Warrior. If you enjoyed today's episode, tell your friends and other caregivers about it. And if you don't want to miss future episodes, be sure to subscribe to the Island Treasures podcast. See you next episode.